What income can you use when getting a VA loan? In this video, we're going to dive into all of the requirements, options, and rules that go along with the VA loan income guidelines. So if you're planning to use your VA loan in the near future, this video is for you. If you don't know who I am, my name is Josh and I educate veterans, active service members, and real estate professionals around everything that go in the VA home loan benefit. So if you want to stay up to date and better understand all the tips, tricks, hacks, and news around the VA loan, subscribe, join the community, and let me know down in the comments what you want to learn more about. The first thing we need to talk about is what is the primary objective of a loan underwriter? The underwriter's job is to verify that you are able to afford the overall monthly payment for the home you're trying to buy, make sure that you can afford the debts and obligations for your other monthly liabilities, make sure you can afford any other shelter expenses that can come along with home ownership, and also make sure that you can overall afford the family living expenses so that you and your family can thrive and not just survive. They're only going to allow you to count income that can be verified, which means that it must be supported by current employment status and also prior employment status. They're going to look at your 2-year employment history to make sure that you have been either in the current line of work or on the current job for at least 2 years. If you have not, that's not going to be a complete disqualifier. It's just going to require a little bit more digging to prove whether or not this can be allowed. For example, maybe you were in college for a couple of years, you just got out of college and you just started your new job. Well, your college can actually support as employment history instead of having been on the job that you're currently in for 2 years. Other situations could be maybe you have transitioned out of active duty and now you are in the civilian sector. Even though you may be working in a specific job that is not the same as what your job was on active duty, it does not necessarily mean that your military experience doesn't count. They're actually very flexible with military experience when it comes to counting as qualifying employment history towards being able to count with your current employment history. The veteran's income is actually not going to be the only income that can or will be used in your ability to qualify. If you are legally married and you are living in one of the 9 community property states, you're going to also have to factor in your spouse's debt, which means that if you're going to have to count their debt, you might as well include their income if they have it. If they don't have income at all, that does not mean that you can completely remove their debt. Because you are in a community property state, you will be required to count your spouse's debt. The income that your spouse may have can simply help offset their monthly liabilities or even improve your overall ability to qualify. If you are not in a community property state, you don't have to worry about including your spouse if you don't want to. The first form of income I want to talk about is going to be active duty pay. On active duty pay, there are going to be things that we can count and potentially things we can't count. For example, if you're receiving BAH, BAS, COLA, or base pay, all of those things can be counted. But if you're receiving things like linguistic pay, hazard pay, or like special duty pay, those things can be counted. What they're going to be looking for is making sure that your income has a likelihood to continue. Another thing that they're going to look for is going to be your ETS or EAS date. Your discharge date must be at least 12 months after or past whatever the date is that you're going to close on your new home. If you want to be able to count your active duty pay in this situation, then they are going to require either proof that you have reenlisted or they're going to require you to provide 2 documents. One of them is going to be what's called intent to reenlist, which is a letter written by you saying you will and are going to reenlist. And the second one is a letter written by your unit saying that you are eligible to reenlist. And this is going to be what will satisfy whenever someone has an ETS or EAS date within 12 months. Now, if you don't want to use your active duty pay, maybe because you are planning on just transitioning out of the military after that date, then what they are going to look at is what your potential income will be in the civilian sector. Maybe you are getting a specific job that is just as a W-2 employee or a contractor. Either way, they want to be able to show what's called an offer letter from that employer as potential qualifying income. And on that offer letter, it will show what your start date is, how much they're going to pay you, and what your employment status is, which means you want to make sure it says you are going to be a full-time employee. Let's talk about non-military employment for those of you that are maybe already in the civilian sector. Well, in this situation, one of the major ways that you can use as qualifying income is going to be for maybe VA disability that you're receiving. If you're receiving VA disability, then this does not require a 2-year history. This counts pretty much literally on day one as soon as you start receiving it. If you're receiving maybe a pension or retirement pay, this also does count on day one as well. And if you're receiving Social Security or Social Security disability income, then that income also does count on day one, no matter how much you are receiving. Some other forms of non-military income income could be for things like alimony, child support, or separate maintenance. You may be the recipient of these incomes. And in this situation, they do require that these incomes will continue for at least 3 years in order for them to count as qualifying income. Now, if your non-military income is going to be for employment, let's say you are working as a W-2 employee. In these situations, they're just going to use a 2-year history of employment, going to require you to be able to satisfy things like W-2s for the last 2 years, pay stubs for at least the last 30 days. And they're going to be able to verify that income by doing what's called a verification of employment with your current employer to make sure that they are using the right amount of qualifying income, and also to prove that you are actually employed by the employer that you have put. If your employer is paying you for overtime or for a bonus, this is actually going to be qualified a little bit differently. They will require that you have been receiving that bonus or overtime pay for at least 2 years. They're going to look at the overall total amount that you have received to do what's called a 2-year average to figure out exactly what they will give you as current qualifying income. Let's say in 2022, you received a $5,000 bonus. Now, the same rule is going to apply for overtime. If you received a $5,000 bonus in 2022, and then in 2023, you received a $10,000 bonus, more than double, what they're now going to do is take a 2-year average of those 2 years, which would be $7,500. Now, if you received less the second year, things are going to be completely different. Let's say in 2022, you received $10,000, but in 2023, you received only $5,000, less than half, or exactly half. They're not actually going to use a 2-year average in this situation. They're actually going to use the lesser of the 2 years, and also want to make sure that there is a likelihood of the overtime income to continue, because it looks a little bit riskier in this situation. If you are currently working in a part-time or second job capacity, no matter how long you have had work experience in this particular line of work, they are going to require at least 2 years working in that capacity for that income to be counted. For my self-employed entrepreneurial business owners, you're going to have a little bit of a different experience. What they're going to require is you providing documentation for your overall business, which means that you're going to have to provide current financial statements, year-to-date profit and loss, balance sheet, and signed tax returns for the past 2 years to be able to determine a 2-year average of what your income is, even if you are giving yourself a W-2 or salary through your corporation. For those of you that are maybe 1099 or commission, you're going to also use a similar 2-year average to our self-employed overtime and bonus people that are receiving those incomes. They're going to do that 2-year average if the income is increasing, and if the income is declining, they're going to use the lower of the 2 years, and then also require you to provide some form of documentation as to why that's happened, and hoping that it's going to be able to continue. For those of you that own rental property, or maybe you own a primary residence that you're intending on converting into a rental and buying another property, there's actually a few different routes this can go. Let's start with those of you that are maybe currently living in your primary residence that you are intending to rent out. This is called a departing residence, which is going to allow you to use potential rental income to offset whatever your mortgage payment is. Let's say that your property's mortgage payment is $2,500 and your potential rental income is also $2,500. Well, the nice thing is the rental income is going to wash away that mortgage payment from counting against your other monthly liabilities. For those of you that maybe already have a rental property and you're not living in the property and it is being rented out, well, in this situation, we will have to get a copy of your last 2 years of tax returns and use the schedules on those tax returns to determine the overall rental income that can be used to offset your mortgage payment. Understanding the VA income verification process is crucial for a smooth loan approval, which is why it's going to be vital for you to connect with a team of individuals who specialize in helping veterans go through the VA loan process, like me and my team. If you want to connect with us and ask questions about your unique situation, book a call with me down below, and I'll be happy to talk more about how to help you achieve your goals. And the last thing I'll leave you with, Jesus loves you and he paid the ultimate price for your life. If you turn to him, trust in him, and believe in him, he has a beautiful plan for you and your family.